nowadays everybody talks about leaky gut, and everybody seems to have a leaky gut. So specifically, what do we mean? And are we actually seeing more cases of that, or are people just talking about it more?
Well, just like as our ability to sort of diagnose and identify disease states and pathology that develops over time, we're going to see an increase in cases. That being said, do we actually have increased leaky gut? That's hard to say. A lot of people are self-diagnosing or assuming that other maladies are due to leaky gut. We can identify markers of increased gut permeability, and we can measure it indirectly in a clinical setting. But just to say, oh, I have eczema, so I must have leaky gut, or I have gastric upset, so I have leaky gut. That's not a way to actually identify the presence of leaky gut. And what leaky gut refers to, this is a phrase that was coined some years ago by Gummison, who's one of the researchers in the field. So, at one point, I think it was more of a legitimate term, and it's been sort of abused. But it really refers to increased permeability or increased leakage or movement of substances from inside the lumen of the intestine into circulation. So the small and large intestine are lined with these sort of rectangular cylindrical epithelial cells, and these are our absorptive cells. They do other things too aside from absorbing things, but basically that serves as sort of a barrier, because even though people think like the insides of our stomachs and intestines are inside the body, technically that's actually external to the body. And
Right.
so these cells express immune receptors that help fend off pathogens, because that's external to the body. You can think of it sort of like, I've called it like a poopy moat before, like around a castle. So these cells are the wall of that castle, and they're held together by tight junction proteins. And ideally, you want them to be really tight together so that you don't have movement of potentially pathogenic substances, between those cells and into circulation or into the connective tissue that supports those cells. So if you have a leaky gut, or I like to use the term intestinal permeability because I think it just sounds a little bit more legitimate.
Yeah.
If you have intestinal permeability, then that's been characterized mostly by leakage of lipopolysaccharide, or LPS, which is a toxin that comes from the cell wall of gram-negative bacteria, so specific bacteria that are going to be found in the gut. That can then bind to immune receptors and cause an inflammatory response. And those immune receptors are expressed on all sorts of different tissues. So you can find them on skeletal muscle, and that was something that we had looked at when I was doing my PhD, and that was really how I got into what's going on in the gut, because we were dosing mice with LPS, and I wanted to know, why do I have to get up so early in the morning and inject these mice with LPS? Because it causes an inflammatory cascade. And where does it come from? It comes from the gut. And then I started to question, well, what is going on in the gut then that's leading people with obesity or type 2 diabetes or people who are eating a high-fat diet to have increased LPS leakage and then increased inflammatory